Hi guys, you're in the right place if you want to learn how to draw by understanding what you're looking at rather than breaking things down into shapes. And today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. So I still want you to have your scrap paper, but I'd like you to have a larger piece and get a pen that you like. That's not going to hopefully be too blotchy, because today what we're going to do is some little vector drawings, okay? And I just want to show you how we can put into practice all our knowledge that we have gained over the last bazillion years drawing these, following along with my little tutorials. So, like, I'm not joking. It's really amazing how when you understand what you're doing and when you understand how the little birdie is put together, you can draw him in any way that you like. So I want to do a couple of these vector videos. This is just going to be the first one. Okay, so by now for sure you're going to be set up. So you have your pen and a larger piece of paper because I want to do a couple of different vectors on this. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we just want to have a small little bill, and everything that we draw today, he's going to be facing this way, and it's going to be a side profile of his head, okay? So let's just do a little triangle for his bill, and we know his bill goes into his face, and there's a divider. Top and bottom. And we know that his eye is located a little bit away and a little bit up, not too much, from the bill. So what we're going to do is put in his eye close to the bill. And because we want him looking at us, we're going to leave it white right in the center. We'll leave the white dot maybe in the center a little bit above. Okay. Now we can do whatever we want, as long as we keep in mind that this is the side of his head. So say you want to do him like with his head extended a little bit, like he's alert or he's seen something that's interesting, but his head is going to be slightly extended. So because that's what we want to draw, we know that we're going to see his little forehead, and we're going to see the top of his head. And because his head is extended, we know that we're going to be seeing a little bit more of his throat, right? So here we have because his head is extended, we see the back of his head and the back of his neck that blends into his back. So from here, all we do at the bottom of the throat, what comes next? Well, we know it's the top of his chest. So we've got his rib cage, his chest going down into his tummy. And because his head is extended, we see the back of his neck, and we've got his back. See? Really basic, really simple. Now, what do we want to do about his wing? Well, we can decide. Do we want to be looking at him like flat on, or, a little bit, from above or from below? But regardless, what we can do, say we just want to put in his shoulder right here and put in his wing. Now, your choice, you can have the wing lying like up against the tail, in which case we know we've got his bum feathers here, and we can have his tail up a little bit, or you can have it out, whatever you like. But keep in mind, though, that this is a side view. So the tail is going to be thin, okay? So whatever you draw, just do it kind of thin. Those feathers can be split at the back, it doesn't matter. We're just going for very basic vector drawings of a birdie. Now, do you want to have him with kind of like longer legs where he's like actually standing up, or do you want to have him just squatting on the ground where he's got his legs tucked under? Your decision. What we can do is just give him some little legs. Now we know the legs are going to be like close to his bum. We know the legs don't start under the tummy here. They start further back. We've got the joint, like his elbow joint, and then the leg comes out. So just position it where you think for his little leg that goes into his body at the back. Now, what else do we know? We know that with the feet, the middle toe in the front is always the longest. So all we have to do is give him a long middle toe, a little short back one. If we want, we can put in his other two toes in the front, put in some cartilage so it actually looks like he's got a foot, and then just see if there's space for his big toe on his other foot. Maybe, maybe not. Just a very simple little vector drawing. Okay? 1 down, 3 to go. So move over on your page because like stick with me. You're not allowed to go anywhere. We're going to do this because I'm just so proud of us, you guys. Just because we understand how the little birdies are put together, it gives us the freedom to do whatever the hell we want. And you can do all your Christmas cards, your birthday cards, get well cards with a little bird on it. You're going to impress the hell out of all your friends. Okay. I'm so excited for us. All right, now let's do it again. Okay, remember he's going to be facing this way. So what we want is a little bill. So just do your little triangle that sticks out into the world, and then the back of the triangle that sticks into his face. Give it a divider and position his eye not too far back and just a little bit above the bottom of the bill. And once again, he's going to be looking at us. So we're going to have our little white circle kind of in the center. Like that. Now what are we going to do? We can do whatever the heck we want. So let's pretend that instead of having his head extended, he's got his head pulled in because it's chilly and he's got all his feathers fluffed up, and he's trying to stay nice and warm. So what does that mean? Well, we're still going to see his forehead, and we're still going to see the top of his head. But we're not going to see the back of his head. We're not going to see his neck because he's got his neck pulled into his body, right? So we're not doing anything back here. Same thing in the front. He's got his head pulled in. Now remember, this is still going to be a side shot, okay? So we just want to have a tiny little itty bitty bit of throat, because remember, he's cold and he's all fluffed up. So underneath his throat, which we're only going to see a little bit, then what do we bump into? We bump into his upper chest, and straight down into his tummy. Now remember, he's cold, so he's going to be all scrunched up like a little fluffy guy. And same thing. We don't see the back of his head. We're not going to see the back of his neck. He's got his neck retracted. So he's going to have fluffy little bum feathers. We're going to give him his wing, which is probably going to be, since he's all fluffed up here. And we can have his tail, fluffy bum feathers. Okay, well look, all my enthusiasm screwed up because his wing is way too small. Minor correction, but you'd expect nothing less. But see what I mean? We're going to have his wing folded on top of his tail. Some tail feathers, the bum feathers. Now, remember, he's chilly and he's all tucked in, which means we may not even see any of his toes. But what we can do is just give him his big front toe, his little back toe, maybe a side toe, like that. Okay? Great. He's nice and puffy and warm with all his feathers all sticking out. Good. You ready to do another one? You guys rock. So now what are we going to do? We're going to do one where his head is still turned to the side, but he's facing us. Okay? So same thing. We want to do a tiny little bill. Clean your pen if you need to. Just give him a small little bill out into the world. Cartilage that goes back into his face. We know where to put the eye. Not too far away from the bill. Not too high, not too low, just in the perfect place. Okay? Now what do we want to do? Teacher says we're going to have him facing us. He's perched on the branch and his chest is facing us. No problem. What are we going to see? He's got his head turned, remember? So we're looking at the side of his head. So we're going to see his little forehead and we're going to see the top of his head. Now, because he has his head turned, we know that these feathers here that are the back of his head and the bottom of his neck, these feathers are going to be ruffled because he has his head turned. His body is facing us and his head is turned. So let's leave this alone right now. His throat, we're going to see a little bit of his throat. And then what do we see behind? We know that we've got his back right here. And on the other side, we've got his shoulder. Okay? So this is his back, and this is his shoulder right here, where the wing is. This is his upper chest, his rib cage, the shoulders where the wings are, and then we go down to his tummy. And this is all the underneath of his tummy. Where his little feet are going to be. Now, these feathers, because he's got his head turned, we're going to have the back of his neck, and it's going to lead into the shoulder where the wing is. So what we'll do is we can just put in a few little feathers here to show where the wings are. Sorry, I made his head a little bit too curvy. Now, what do we have here? He's got his little toes over a branch, okay? And once again, we know that the middle toe is the longest one. So we're going to do something long for his middle toes. Maybe see some of the shorter toes. So what do we want to do with the branch? Well, there's two things. If you put him on something narrow, you're going to have to show his back toe. But if you put him on something that's a little bit thicker, we don't need to worry about his back toe. What do we have underneath? We've got the fluffy feathers under his bum and his tail. So let's just put in his tail like this. You can give it a flare if you like. Now, because it's the underneath of the tail, we know that we typically see the borders of the feathers. So you can put in some borders there. This is our little guy. He's a little bit fat. Okay. Just really simple vector drawings. That's all I wanted to do today. Now this line here is important because we're going to see underneath his throat, and then we're going to see his back behind, okay? And then his shoulders here, you can make them as wide as you like through the shoulders and the chest. Now, if you haven't hung up on me yet, I want to do one more where instead of his chest facing us, his back is going to be toward us. All right? So, because we're so clever and we're still going to have him facing that way, we're going to do another little bill. Just a little triangle facing out into the world. There's the cartilage going into his face. Divider. Give him his eyeball. You know exactly where to place it. Not too high, not too low, not too big, not too small. Leave a little white dot because he's looking at us. We've got the bill and we've got the eye. Now, we're going to have his back toward us. So what are we going to see? We're still going to see his forehead, and we're still going to see the top of his head. But what happens to these feathers over here? He's got his head turned, so they're not going to be lying flat. Also, so that we know we have to have this ruffled here. Now, because he's got his back to us, what we're going to see is just a little bit underneath his chin. Because what we have is he's got his upper back right here. So we're going to have his shoulders. This is the top of his back. The shoulders where the wings are. The wings are going to come down. And they typically will fold and line up nicely along the top of the tail. So here, we're only going to see a little bit underneath his throat. And these feathers at the back of his head are going to be a little bit ruffled where they meet the top of his back. So what are we going to do about his wings? Well, we know that the feathers off the head are going to bump into the feathers at the top of his neck. So this is all feathers at the top of his back between the two wings. So what we can do is just put in, we know that the wings typically have these smaller little bars of feathers that are at the top of the wing, and then the feathers get longer and bigger, and then they meet. So we can just do, if we want to, remember, it's just a vector drawing. We're not doing a scientific paper, okay? And these feathers on the wings end up meeting in the center of the back. Not much like this, but you know what I mean. Okay? Now, let's stick them on a little branch. Okay? So this is kind of good because we don't have to worry about his feet. We're going to stick him on a little branch. And the branch can be narrow or it can be fat. It doesn't matter because we're not going to be dealing with any toes. But what we do have to do is his tail. Okay? So we're just going to do a tail. It can be straight down. It can have a flare. It doesn't matter. But for the outside of the tail, telling you that it doesn't matter, which is sort of true. But for the top of the tail, none of this stuff, okay? Because we know that when we have been drawing the underneath part of the tail, that's where we see the borders for all the feathers. But on top, usually what we see is just the border of one feather. How about that? Aren't we clever, you guys? Just really simple, basic little vector drawings, which we can do because we understand how the little birdies are put together. We know about ruffled feathers and the turn of the head. and how the shoulders and the back go. We know all that stuff. And because we know, we can use that knowledge to draw our birds in any orientation that we like. So, okay. Well, I think we deserve 10 out of 10 for this one. So basically, this is it for today. And then, I want to do more vector videos where he's facing the other way, and then we can have the body coming down a tree or, tilted, have him getting things off the ground. There's all sorts of things that we can do simply because we understand how the birds are put together. So, okay, stay tuned for another vector video. I really, really hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. And thanks for your company. I'll see you next time.